Hello, and today we're going to talk about what it's like being the first transgender female student attending an all-women's college. So, my name's Erica, and I attend Sweet Briar College in Virginia, near Lynchburg, and I am the first transgender female student living here, going to school full-time, and seeking a degree. And it's it's an experience, let me tell you. I wasn't really sure if I was going to do this video or not, because when I first got here to the school a year ago, I got some pushback from the administration for talking about this and everything, and they wanted some of my videos taken down, but that person has now left. So the way we're going to do this video is I'm going to talk about my experiences, fears, concerns, struggles, and then we're going to talk about things that happened to me while I was here, both positive and negative, and then finally we're going to end with changes, hopefully. So a little background on me. I am 30 years old. I know, I feel old. I went to a school before this called Marywood University, and I got a degree, a dual bachelor's in physician assistant studies and a philosophy of ethics degrees with minors in history and astronomy, and a graduate certificate in bioethics. I graduated cum laude with an honors citation, and I had 17 honor cords. And then I also studied master's mental health counseling for a little bit, about a year. And during that time, I was subjected to quite a bit of discrimination. And it got to a point where even the school said, yeah, this is discrimination, but they can the policies allow them to do that. And so, me kind of seeing the writing on the wall, they didn't want a transgender person there, I started looking at other schools. And I looked at Cedar Crest College. I actually went there and visited. They were great, but it just didn't, there was just something that didn't click. And then I applied to Sweet Briar College. I had been here like a long time ago. I knew somebody that went here, but I never, thought about going here because it's an all-women's college. But I applied, and the policy is that your birth certificate has to say female for sex. Well, I had just gotten a letter from my doctor stating that my birth certificate can change, and I submitted it, and it was being changed, and the school was like, oh, all right, cool. The dean of students was great about it. My admissions and counselor was great, and there was no issue. I showed them all the forms. They're like, yeah, whenever it comes in, just let us know. My dean even told me, like, yeah, as long as you give us the birth certificate before you graduate, you're fine. She's like, you can attend here in the meantime. And so I was excited, and I was like, cool, I have a backup plan. And lo and behold, a couple weeks after getting my acceptance letter to Sweet Briar, I was basically told that because of an obscure rule, my school was kind of saying that I was not capable of continuing. So I also have diagnosed autism, and I have ADHD as well. I served in the military. It's now been about 10 years as active duty for 5, and then National Guard for 5. I'm a firefighter EMT. I was married but now divorced. And I did some advocacy work for LGBTQ and trans rights. And I, for my honors thesis and a paper that I'm working on publishing, is about the medical ethics of treating kids with gender dysphoria. And I say this to show that I have a pretty diverse background. And so this school or this college basically said, hey, you know, you're just not, because of your mental health, you can't really continue. And I'm like, okay, so now you're just saying because I have autism I can't do it, whatever. But so I was like, all right, off to Sweet Briar. I got a scholarship, and I was like, well, I have a degree, but I want to go to med school, so I'm going to do a design your own major. I took 2 classes in the summer, and the professors are still I'm still friends with them to this day. I you know, go have dinner with them, I talk with them. They have been hands down some of the best supporters. One of my professors, she teaches women and gender studies, the point of the class is to teach like women's rights around the world, and like how some women have more rights than others and all this stuff, and knowing the history of it. And she worked with me, and we started a panel that we do now every semester for her class, where we bring in 2 or 3 transgender female leaders in the military, and I'm on the panel as well, and then we talk to the students about being a female transgender leader. So that was really cool. Anyway, I as the deadline is approaching to move in, I was then talking to the school about playing field hockey with the coach and everything, and they were excited. And then I get an email. Now, to be clear, before this, I was assigned to move into the dorms, in just a regular dorm room in Randolph, one of our dorms, and it was approved by everybody. Well, then all of a sudden I get an email from Dean of Students. I'm not going to say their name because they no longer work here, but they basically said, hey, so I'm moving you to a off-campus housing location to live. Don't worry, you're going to love it. You know, it'll be great, and being older, you won't have to do, you don't want to be on campus, and it'll be cheaper, etc., etc. And I was like, no, I'm good. I want to live in the dorm. And then I basically got the same email, like, no, you're gonna love it. Like, not even telling me why, which I kind of knew was a red flag. And then a day later, I get a contact from the head of the admissions, like, hey, we need your birth certificate. And I'm like, yeah, it's coming. It's COVID. They said it's gonna be like 22 weeks because everybody's working from home. And they were like, well, we can't let you start until we have your finished birth certificate. And this was like a week before showing up there. I literally had packed up my entire, like, everything in my car, ready to go. And I was gonna drive down the 7 hours to school and move in. And they were like, yeah, we need your birth certificate now. And I was like, well, the dean said this and this, and like, they made it clear that someone somewhere finally noticed and put a stop to it, and they were trying to hope that it would stop me from coming here. I reached out to professors that I had, and they were very supportive and trying to work for the advocacy. But most of all, shout out to whoever was working on my birth certificate, because I contacted them and told them what was happening, and they like rushed it, and they were in 2 days they had it done, and they were like, here you go, no problem. And it was wrong of the school, because I hadn't, like, literally it was in process. It was being changed, they just hadn't gotten done yet because of COVID. And but they were like, yeah, no, you can't even come here. And they waited all summer to tell me that. So that was like #1 issue. So I'm nervous. I'm driving down. I remember seeing the sign like Sweet Briar College, and I'm like 20 minutes away, and I'm so nervous. I want to throw up because I'm like, I can just turn back now, because they're gonna hate me. It's an all-women's college. Nobody's gonna want me here. They're gonna hate me. They're gonna all see me as some pedophile, some person that is gonna hurt them. And I was like, I can't. Well, I show up, and I get put in my orientation group, and it just like proceeds normally. I moved into the off-campus housing that they gave me, and I was still trying to fight that. It was funny, I showed up on campus, and they gave me the keys to the dorm room I was supposed to live in. And I was like, well, they changed it. And they were like, they shouldn't have. And then they came back and like, oh, I guess here you go. So I got moved to this off-campus housing, and it sucked because I didn't want to live there. but I was like, another battle for another day. So I start meeting the team for field hockey, and they're wonderful, and the coach is great, and everybody's like teaching me how to play and bringing me in. And then like we go for pictures, so I have my picture done, and then I have my uniform, and I'm so excited. I'm on the roster on the website, and like, you know, I was working with the athletic trainer showing, hey, here's my medical stuff so I know you're fine and everything. Well, then the day comes where I get informed that I need a waiver to play, not because I'm trans, but because I've been in college for a long time. And basically they said, even though I never played a sport, I had to like get a waiver to say that, hey, like, I should be given a chance to have a season. So, like, my picture and name and everything was removed from the roster. All of a sudden, like, at games, I couldn't play. I could go to practice, but I couldn't play in the games, and I couldn't even wear my jersey. And that hurt. That really hurt. Like, I'm watching my team play, and I'm sitting there, and it's like, yeah, don't worry, Erica, you're the manager, you're helping us. I'm like, thanks. I want to be a player. I was a player. I played 2 games before then, and I loved it, and like my team was great, and we all really connected, and it was just like this really hit in the gut of, hey, like, we have to, and it felt like it was taking a while. Well, and then I was informed by someone that there were a few members on the board of directors that didn't really like that I was here. So they were basically trying to hide me. They had me move off campus. They were not really bringing attention to me, and like that's why my stuff was removed. The problem, I don't know how to hide. Wherever I go, I somehow get attention. Like, not in a negative way, but like, I like to do things. I like to help people. I like to volunteer. So I started running, and I became the non-traditional chairperson for the student government. I was voted for. And it was really weird. Coming on campus, like, day one, people were coming up to me I've never met before. They're like, oh, you're Erica. And I'm like, yeah, hey, hi, who are you? They're like, oh, hi, like, I followed your Instagram, or I read your blog, or I've just always wanted to meet you. Oh, you should. And I had someone that walked by, and she worked for the university, and she was like, Erica, you should run for like student government, or you should do this, like, you would be great at it. And I was like, it was weirded out because I wasn't used to all this like positive attention, and I was like, oh, okay, sure. I started running, and I won for the student government, and I started going to meetings and starting like, here's my plan, this is what I want to do. And you know, it took them 8 months. They put everybody else's name on the website for the student government. Mine, they never changed. Every single time I brought it up, they're like, oh, we'll fix that. Yeah, never changed. So, interesting, again. But anyway, as the semester went on, I kept fighting for my housing. I was like, I want to live in the dorms. I want to live near my team. I want to live in the dorms. Let me live near my team. I cannot live in this off-campus housing. It's not good for my mental health. I even had a letter from my therapist saying I would be better off in the dorms. And we had a new accommodations person, and essentially they were trying to fight for me, and I was getting email after email saying, hey, like, you can't. It's the policy is that, you know, they were saying non-traditional students can't live in the dorms, which, interestingly, that policy had just shown up because when I was given a dorm room, I talked to the school, and they were like, oh yeah, no, you could choose to live in the dorms. So it's interesting how it kind of magically changed. And that dean of students was still causing problems, and she would come up and pretend to be friendly and be like, oh, hey, you like, oh, you're awesome, oh, I love you. And then, you know, but it was that, like, you could feel like there was something there. And then I overheard a conversation they had with someone when they didn't think I was around, and the negative things that was being said about me, and I was like, okay, gotcha. This is how we play. Well, then I was like, fine, we can play that game. I'm going to try to be the best student I can, and I am going to try to help out, and I am going to try to just be the best person that I can. So then you have to make the conscious decision to purposely try to discredit me, and you know, that now you have to make that moral judgment of, oh, this person is doing good for people, and I'm going to try to stop them. Anyway, I continue playing field hockey over Christmas, and for housing, I got an email finally that was like, hey, it's just not gonna happen. The best we can do is maybe move you into the, they call it GV, it's like on-campus apartments. They're like, that's kind of the best we can do, if you know people that you can live with. And I'm like, I don't know, I'm a first year, all this. So I meet with the accommodations person, and we're talking, and it finally gets to the point where they tell me, well, you know, because I keep sounding like, why, what are the reasons, tell me, because there's always a way around it. And they finally were like, hey, you know, well, what if, like, you move into the dorms and people are jerks to you, or they harass you and stuff. I'm like, people already do that. Like, I get that crap online all the time, you know? So it's like, at least if I move into the dorms, I can be next to my friends and next to my team. So if anything, when people do that, I have a support system, whereas now I don't. I didn't have a support system around me because I was off campus, essentially. And I was like, look, you know, you're telling me that you're advocating for me, but you're telling me what's best for me. Let me decide. If you're gonna advocate for a marginalized group, don't take away their voice. And that's because that's what was happening. And when I addressed it, he was like, oh shit. He's like, you're right. He's like, I was so focused on like advocating for all these groups that I forgot that I should be advocating for all my students equally. And so that lit a fire. And all of a sudden, he was like, hey, we're getting somewhere. And him and the dean of students and the board of directors would meet and talk about it. And well, I was coming up on surgery the next year, and I was like, hey, I need to live in a place that is handicap accessible, near everything on campus, because I can't drive. And it would be great if I could live near people that actually like my teammates, who could help take care of me, because I was going to need help. And so now there was a need. So they were like, all right, well, we'll get back to you. So Christmas comes around, and I'm staying on campus. And I requested to stay on because it was just safer than going home. Going home wasn't safe. So they put a bunch of people up in the apartments on campus, and then there's a place called P House, and it's this older house. They put me over there and all the international students, but with the room assignments, all the international students are on one side of the building, and I'm on the other side where I have a private bathroom and all of this. Oh, and they play it up. It's like, oh, it's really convenient. This is so nice. Oh, look, it's so spacious. And I'm like, look, I know what you're doing. I know what's happening. Like, you're literally separating me, being like, well, we don't want to have you mix bathrooms because people could be uncomfortable. Bite me. Ugh, come on. Like, I literally changed in the same changing rooms. I, like, swam in the lake with these girls. Like, the students didn't care. The only people that cared were these older administrators. That was it. And then it came out that the administrators were worried, well, what would parents say? What would happen if donors were upset? And I actually had some alumna try to contact me. And they were like, hey, I'd love to give you a call. And I'm like, this is weird. And they wanted to know about me going there, why I chose to go there, all this stuff. And it didn't feel right. And I told my coach, and they handled it. But, you know, and I'm trying to deal with all this as well as just going to class and being a regular student and playing field hockey and all that. So So what we did, one of my friends on the field hockey team was living with me, or living in that house over Christmas, and so we just moved her stuff over to the room next to me, and we lived together. Because, like, it was just kind of obvious that they didn't want me to be with others. Well, finally, towards the end of Christmas break, I get told, hey, we're allowing you to move into the dorms. I'm like, yes, thank you. And so I was told by the new housing person that I could choose. I knew there were empty rooms on the 4th floor of one of the dorms. My friend was the RA. She was like, we have like so many empty rooms, and there were a bunch of field hockey girls that lived up there. I was like, yes, there's an elevator right there, accessible by handicap access, right near everything, perfect. So I requested it, and they were like, oh yeah, okay. And then the next day, I hear from my friend who's the RA that they got in trouble because they're not supposed to be telling people what rooms are empty and what rooms aren't. Because I should not have. They told me originally that the rooms were full. They didn't have any empty rooms. And now all of a sudden I knew, and so it made them look foolish. So they had to punish people for sharing that info, because there's no actual thing stopping them. But I got an email at like, and I was, look, you have no idea how excited I was. I'm like, I can finally live with people. I don't have to be isolated alone, and I can just be me and just be a normal student for once. Well, I get an email at 10 o'clock at night. Hey, Erica, we were mistaken. We can't put you up there. The only place we can put you is in the basement apartment of one of the dorms. And this basement apartment has a private bathroom, of course, private kitchen. There was no reason for me to leave. It was out of the way. I had like no windows. No one lived down there. So I was on campus, quote unquote, but I was hidden. And I had no reason to go out and interact with other people in common living spaces, like using the kitchen or using the bathroom or showers, because it was all given to me. Oh, and they were showing, oh, it's such a great room, all this. I was like, none of the field hockey people live in this building. Like, who's going to help me with my surgery? Oh, well, we'll make an exception so that way they can come visit and come into your room. I was like, uh-huh, great, okay. Well, I'm going to be honest, it was difficult, and I started having like self-harm thoughts because I was defeated. Like, I had spent a whole semester just fighting to have the same rights as every other student here, to just not be the embarrassment of this school. The school that I loved. I love this school. I love the students and the professors, and like, I was an embarrassment to be hidden away. Well, I reached out to my athletic trainer because she was there and I didn't know what else to do, and I told her, and then I get a message from the dean. The dean of students texts me and says, hey, or dean of college texts me and says, hey, let's go for a walk. I was like, okay. Because I wanted to have a meeting to know, like, what happened, why is this happening, and we walked and we talked for a while, and to her credit, she was honest, she was open, she was real. She told me the reality of things, not in a bad way, but in like, hey, this is what we're fighting. And she even asked me at one point, like, hey, like, we're trying one step at a time, you know, I just need you to hold on and to keep doing what you're doing. And she wanted me to actually help her, like, develop policies for bringing on other types of students and bridging this and fixing things, because I had already helped her to develop a system to where our preferred names show up in the system instead of our legal names. And so after this walk and this talk for a couple hours, I felt better, and I was like, okay, I at least trust that I have some advocates, and I do trust her, and I still trust her to this day. And because they said, look, we have to do this the right way. Well, then I get a message from the financial aid office saying, hey, we can't get you financial aid because your legal name's male, and we're an all-women's college, and it would hurt our funding. And I'm like, that's not how that works. What do you do for your students that are named Taylor, or Devin, or Jesse, or Clark? Plus, there was a Supreme Court case that actually stated that names are not deemed as religious or gender specific. That was in like the 70s. And then I kept getting these emails from one of the offices saying, hey, have you changed your legal name yet? I'm like, no, it's COVID. I can't yet. Can't go home. I can't afford it. Okay. Well, what about now? What about now? And they kept asking. I'm like, oh my god, like, why is it any of your business? When I change it, I will change it. Well, the semester starts, and I'm now living, I had to move it into this basement apartment by myself, on my own. And to the credit of my friends, they came over and we visited a lot. It was a good hangout place, and we, played Dungeons and Dragons, and we, played board games and partied and hung out, and it was great. And I had my surgery. The accommodations person, he went above and beyond. He would, made sure that I was taken care of. He got it so that some of the students could come, and they willingly drove me and stayed with me in the hospital and drove me back. They missed some of their classes for me. The professors I was with, they were so incredibly kind, and some invited me over for dinner, and I met their families, and I was invited over to several people's houses for Christmas, and it's still this whole thing of oh my god, you're Erica. I'm like, yeah, hi, how are you? And oh my god, I always wanted to meet you. Can we have lunch or something? It's yeah, absolutely. That still was occurring a lot. It was just weird. I'm not saying I hate it. It's just it was unexpected. So then now we're in spring semester, living in this basement dorm room, and it was so depressing. I never knew if it was daylight or not. And I get home from surgery, and the first day my room floods, and I can't walk. I'm fresh from surgery, and my room is flooding. And the RA came down, and she was like, oh my god, let's fix this. And she tried to get maintenance, and maintenance well, we'll be there in a couple of days. She was like, no, you're gonna come here now. She was amazing. She fought so hard for me. Again, the student body here is amazing. They really were supportive and have been. I wish I could say that was the only problem with that room and the only issue I had. And so what also came with the spring semester was, hey, Erica, I need you to take down your field hockey pictures, and I need you to limit your posting about it. And apparently you weren't supposed to be able to practice last semester, so now I was unable to practice, and I could go, but I couldn't play. And that broke my heart, because that was what was getting me through everything, was being able to just, for a couple hours a day, be a regular student, and now all of a sudden I wasn't again. So I had surgery, and I went through the semester going to class, playing or going to field hockey games and helping. I would collect water, take notes, collect up the balls, and credit to my coaches, they did everything they could to involve me and make sure I felt as a part of everything as possible. But their hands were tied, because it was decided, no, they can't. So then comes the big problem. And that's going to come in part 2. So, thanks for sticking with me for part 1. And I'll pick it up in part 2 on what it's like being the first transgender female at an all-women's college.